What up, guys? This is the Timeless Podcast with myself, Nair, Denny, and Meldon. Before we start this video, go ahead, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Facebook. And today's guest, we have Mike Goetz. He was my coach and mentor while I was growing up playing soccer. He had we kind of didn't really communicate for 5 years or something.
A few years,
and then we kind of got into it because you went through some difficult times. If you want to go ahead and speak about that and kind of what you're.
Well, yeah, the last couple of years have been a little tough. I was first diagnosed with multiple sclerosis back in February of 2017, which was a little strange for somebody at that point. I was 49 years old to get diagnosed with it. I knew I had issues going on, and you always think, well, I guess when you get old, you hurt. When you get old, you hurt, and you just wasn't really sure. It's just like, well, I guess this is what getting old is about. And then, finally, I had some issues that happened that got me to the right place where I was diagnosed with that. And I guess we reconnected again on Facebook.
Yeah.
And a lot of our old teammates were on there, and it's been great to keep in touch with everybody. And that's kind of where the journey that I'm on right now began, and it's taken a couple little twists and turns even since then.
So did you have any when you were diagnosed, what was you said you were diagnosed with two things, right?
Yeah. So this past March, I was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and not related to multiple sclerosis, but again, another rare diagnosis. Usually people are diagnosed with this disease either as a very young child, or I think the average age of a CLL patient is like 80 years old. So chalk it up to me to be different.
You said that your doctor found 4 other cases like that and nobody survived?
Yeah. So it was really funny. I'd been having some issues and I'd been sick, and so with multiple sclerosis, you can catch a cold, you can have like a stomach bug or whatever, and that'll throw you into what they call a relapse. With relapses, you can go into numbness, go into paralysis, very bad nerve pain and things like that. And I'd kind of been going through some of that, and I started having some really bad issues with my digestive system. And I just kept on thinking, well, it's MS. It's just like I got these nerves going nuts in me, and that's what's going on. And so finally, I had just a routine follow-up with my neurologist, and she's like, look, I don't know what's going on with you. This isn't MS. You need to get to your general practitioner and start some testing there and figure out, because until you get this figured out, your MS isn't going to stop flaring. And so I went to my general practitioner. I happened to have like a little cold at the time, and it's like, I don't understand what's going on. I cannot get over this cold. My wife had it. She was over it in like 5-6 days, and here I am going like 10 days into this thing, and it's just not going anywhere. He's like, we'll get you fixed up. Let's figure out your stomach. He goes, you just turned 50.
Get the checkups.
He said, time for the colonoscopy. We're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And I'm just like, just the thought of a colonoscopy, I think probably every man hates that idea.
Some men don't.
Maybe. What I'll tell you, having had 2 in the last several months, they're not bad at all. So when it's time for you to go get it, go get it.
People say like the worst part of it's actually the pre-treatment kind
the
of
prep.
Drinking the gallon of
it's
that's the fluids that make you
it
clean
gets
you
you
out.
moving.
Yeah.
It gets you moving.
This is the worst part of it.
The problem was is I was already having that situation going on. By the time I showed up for the colonoscopy, I was on day 42, but who's counting?
Day 42 of the cold, or
No,
the flare
my
up.
stomach
oh,
issues.
okay, yeah.
So the clean out was just par for the course for me. And what was really amazing is when I got into to the recovery room from the colonoscopy, I really think that's one of the first miracles that happened, because the doctor that I ended up with, I got the referral from my general practitioner, and I just called them up and said, I've had this issue going on for so long. I'll take whoever you got. First day, first time slot, let me in there. Well, the doctor that I ended up with was part of what saved me. He tells my wife Julie and me, and he goes, I've got good news. I didn't see any cancer. I didn't see any polyps. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I don't know what I've just seen.
So was that good news to you?
Well, the cancer thing was great news at that very moment, but for a guy who is a chief of surgery at the hospital he was at, who has seen and done everything, to say I don't know what I've just seen was a little disconcerting.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm going to call you up in let's see, I'm going to call you up in like 2 days when we get the test results back, and I'll let you know what's going on. And 2 days came and went. And so finally, the third day, I call his assistant. He'd given me her direct number, and she's like, "Well, yeah, we're still got a lot of these biopsies out. We're gonna figure it out." And so Friday comes, and I'm like, I've got to go through the weekend and not know what's going on with me. And she's like, "Yeah." She goes, "We had to send it out to a second lab. We'll know something for you on Monday."
How was that weekend like? Can you?
Sounds nerve-wracking.
Did you sleep at all? Or?
Because I know you have a different personality than most people.
Yeah.
Like you look at the positive of things and kind of bring out the funny side. I would say. So
I always choose to do that. I choose to have fun no matter what I do. Thank you for remembering that about me. So my whole thing in life is you can't worry about what you don't know. And we didn't know anything. So was it a long weekend? Yes. And so, Monday rolls around, I call the office, still nothing. And she goes, "We're working on it. I promise you we'll have it tomorrow. Tomorrow you're coming to see us at 9 a.m. We'll have your results." And so Julie and I go to his office, and we get taken back to one of the exam rooms, and we're just sitting there nervously waiting, and he comes in, and you could just tell he wasn't himself. Even though I didn't know him very well, he was really not in a comfortable state. And he goes, I'm just going to be real honest with you. You've got lymphoma. And I'm like, "Okay, what's this mean?" And he goes, "First, I'm going to tell you that this isn't anything that you've done or haven't done. This is a crazy code switch in your DNA, and we don't know what causes it. We don't know why it happens, but he goes, as luck would have it, I was on call at the hospital this weekend, and I ran into the most brilliant hematologist, and I've discussed this case with him, and he goes, I'm just going to tell you, if it were me or anybody in my family, this is the only person that I would take them to." He goes, "I've got you an appointment on Friday. You're going to go see him, and this guy's going to get you fixed up." At that point, we still just didn't know anything. But Nair, you'll get a kick out of this, because the first thing he said to me when he walks in the room is, "You've just got to be different, don't you?" I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, he goes, I can just tell you that the way that this disease presents is like you usually see a random blood test that somebody just has abnormal blood work and we catch it that way, or they have it in their lymphatic system, like they might have tonsils or might have something else going on that gives an indication. He goes, but I've never seen anybody like this. Like, okay, great. I said, so what, this is the meeting. What stage am I? And he's like, we don't have a stage for you.
Is it because they didn't know of anything about it? So they just kind of like
so rare, such a rare presentation of this disease that they couldn't stage it. It's usually stage 1 through 4. Some people that get this disease have no treatment. They have a term they call watch and wait. They sit there and they can live for years like this, and they'll go in periodically, have some blood work, and then they'll decide whether it's time to treat. I went from January the 19th when my symptoms started until probably mid-March, and I'd lost 40 pounds.
Was it because of the mental factor or kind of the
stomach factor? I was not absorbing any food. I spent about half my day in the bathroom. I was in bed or in the bathroom. And it took about 6 weeks from the initial diagnosis for them to even figure out what they were going to treat, how they were going to treat me. They shared my case. I was treated at Norton Cancer Institute there in Louisville, and they have a program with the University of Kentucky Medical Center. So they had what they call the tumor board meeting, and they presented my case to it. And there is a gold standard treatment for people with CLL, and it's a 3-drug cocktail, and I can't even pretend to know what those 3 very long words are, but they just call it FCR. And the guys at UK were like, yeah, he's young enough, let's give him FCR, we'll bomb this stuff and be done with it. And my doctor's like, I don't feel good about it. You're so compromised right now, your immune system's so messed up that if we go in and give you this, it's going to take out any bit of immunity that you do have, and you're going to die. And he goes, I encourage you to go anywhere that you want and get a second opinion. And so of course, you know how insurance goes in this country. So you got to work through your insurance company. And I had I sought out advice from the insurance company, and I said, okay, where should I go for a second opinion? And come to find out, there's about 40 different centers of excellence in the United States, and Vanderbilt was the closest to us. And my daughter Emma lives in Nashville. I was like, okay, great, we'll go down, we'll see Emma, I'll go to Vanderbilt, and we'll see what these guys think. And that doctor there was in complete agreement with my doctor in Louisville, and said, like, this is going to kill that guy. And there was a lot of debate back and forth as to what drugs I would do. So they decided to go a different route, and I was like, okay, let's do it. And it was a very old treatment that they didn't have in the Western world until after the Berlin Wall fell. The drug was developed in Eastern Germany, and it's called bendamustine. And the other drug they were giving me is called Rituxan. And so they're give both drugs to me. And bendamustine is very nasty, very sick. Everything that you ever think about somebody with cancer going through is what you go through. And so we decided to go that route. I go to show up for my first treatment. Julie remarks to me, and I think she even made a post on Facebook about it, but she's like, you know what love is? I'm like, no. And she's like, love is when you're willing to put poison in your body so you can stay alive. And I'm just like, wow, yeah. So I go in. So when you get to treatment, the first thing they do, they have to put in the IV, and you have to take about 30 minutes of IV fluid just to make sure you're well enough hydrated before they begin the medicine. So my IVs had already begun, and Dr. Terry Hadley is my hematologist, and he comes in and he's like, I've just been doing more reading, and I don't think this is the way we need to go. So I was there on the doorstep of having this treatment, and he just was continually researching. He was continually curious, and nothing is going to be cookie cutter for this man. And that's the other miracle, my saving grace, that he decided that was going to be too harsh for me to survive given what was going on with me. And so he's like, I found this, there's an oral biologic chemotherapy. It's really not chemotherapy, but they call it chemotherapy, but it's a biologic. And he's like, I want you to take this for 30 days, and then on the 30th day you'll come in and you'll get an infusion. We'll do these infusions for 6 weeks, and then we'll test you again and figure out where we're going from there. And it's kind of a new treatment, and so I started that on May 2nd. By the end of May, I went in to get that first infusion, and really that's what saved my life. By the time August rolled around, I'd gone through 6 infusions and then taking a daily oral chemotherapy that I'll be on for the rest of my life. The thing about CLL is that you're never cured from it.
Yeah.
What will happen is eventually I'll catch a cold or some crazy bug and it'll kill me. But we're doing a lot of things to keep my immune system boosted. I go every 28 days for
checkups.
Well, for an infusion.
Oh, okay.
I get antibodies. I'm given this blood product that takes 1,000 blood donors to make one treatment.
That's
wild. Never heard of that.
Yeah.
I think one thing that saved you also is your attitude. Because, like, I know some people, like, that I've actually witnessed myself, is when they get told they have cancer or whatever it is, anything that's deadly, they'll literally, you can tell on their face, in 2 weeks they'll be totally, it's kind of mentally, they just give up mentally.
It's a mental battle.
They don't eat, they don't take, they literally
shut
kill
down,
themselves.
yeah.
And I feel like one thing that you do is really well is look at the positive side. And
well, thanks.
What's something that kept you like grounded and kind of?
Well, I do think that I've always been that person that I want to see the bright side to everything. I can tell you sitting here today that more good has come from my diagnosis than bad, even though I have a terminal disease. But I think, and I told this to the doctor, I was like, look, I like to have fun in life. I'm going to have fun with this too. And I'm going to joke. So don't think that I'm going to come in here all doom and gloom, because that's not how I'm going to live my life. And if I'm going to die, I'm going to die having fun too.
That's the best way.
Beautiful way to live
be,
life, yeah.
And I don't know. I can't explain it, but I had this really strong peace that came over me with this diagnosis, and I was just like, I knew once I learned how rare my case was, I was going to be okay even if I didn't treat it, because they didn't know, they couldn't stage it. I didn't want my family to remember me as a sick, gray person shriveled up in bed. I wanted them to remember me like I am now, like you've always known me. And I was still that person, even though I was so sick. I was still living a pretty normal life, and it's like, I'll let these symptoms overcome me, and I'll die one day, but I'm not going to die because the medicine itself is going to kill me. But the doctor, my oldest son, Jack, came to the initial consultation with Julie and me, and Dr. Hadley followed us out, and he said, you need to make sure your dad knows we're going to treat this, and I'm not going to rest till we figure this out. And, like I said, the rarity of it is that he started researching, and he could only find 4 other cases similar to mine, and none of the other 4 survived. And here I am doing very well. Let's see, what were we, 7 months later, I'm in what they call a hematologic remission. It's still in my bone marrow, but because my blood work is so good that they feel like there's no need to treat it further and do anything that might be damaging to me if I'm staying healthy and doing well. So it's crazy to think that I'm the lone survivor right now.
Yeah.
So
people kind of every day when people go through stuff, they look at these like problems, whether it be a final exam or something, and they think they're in the worst place ever or not paying a credit card. What would you tell those people that, like, you've been to the worst of the worst? So that's, you can't go any.
Yeah, you can see you were
at the darkest
you were at
days.
death's door
You're
almost.
Yep.
You were
rock
pretty.
bottom.
So like,
Yeah.
what would you tell those people? Because like, people want to watch this and they're gonna gain something from you, because you're definitely a different breed.
Yeah, inspiration for sure.
One thing I'll say is that, if our life is a story or a book, it's only a chapter, and we don't know where the story ends. I can tell you things that I thought were the worst thing that ever happened to me that pale in comparison to this. Most people know me that I ended up following my kids and their mom to Louisville, and they had moved there before me, and I thought, living in 2 separate cities for a few years was the worst thing that would ever happen to me.
Yeah.
Drew played soccer with us, and we were back and forth, and we saw everybody every week, and I was at everything the kids ever did. But I thought, at that time, not living in the same city as my kids for a couple years was the worst thing that could ever happen, and it's not. And the thing I can tell people is to have patience, and to know that there's always more to the story. And we live in such an instantaneous society that we think that everything has to be instant. We can't stand when somebody doesn't answer that text immediately.
Yeah.
We can't stand if we send somebody a text and they don't give us the read notifications. But you know what? All of it can happen in its own good time. And I think the thing that we can learn the best is that all we can do in this life is control ourselves. And so you can make the personal decision that I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be satisfied, that where I am right now is where I'm supposed to be, and that I've got to find the best here and now. And the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and you've got to find your happy place where you are.
It's awesome, man. Like that's moving to anybody. I mean, whether it be somebody that's that's diagnosed with a deadly thing, or whether it be somebody that's just having a rough time in their life. So
I mean, I have running jokes in my head having two like I have this meme generator going on in my head between MS and CLL, and it's always like, oh, here, hold my beer. Let me show you what I can do. Let me show you what I can do. And it's just like, sometimes I'm calling the doctor. I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. And it's like, the neurologist will be like, that might be your CLL. You might want to call the hematologist. Or the hematologist might be like, hey, yeah, I don't know if that's something that you need to check with a neurologist about. I'm not really sure what's going on with you there. And the funny thing about all this is, as much as they're not sure which is which sometimes with everything that goes on with me, the ironic thing is the drug that I'm taking is just now been approved as a treatment. Of course, it was a treatment for leukemia, but it's now been approved for treatment for MS, even though there's no link between both of those diseases.
that's crazy.
You think you're kind of like the guinea pig in the situation?
I don't know what the heck
You're the
I'm
link.
gonna be.
Special, man.
My hematologist and the gastroenterologist are writing a case study on me.
Yeah.
And, I've always thought that I was going to write a book. Really, I thought it was going to be more about my coaching philosophy and, the relationships that I've developed with all my players over the years. But I think these two illnesses have made me take all the crap I dished out to you guys and take my own advice. And I think the way that I wanted you all to be as players and the lessons that I wanted to teach you all, I had to take my own medicine. And I had to take it on the same way and take the same challenges and just view this as a training session to get to game day. And it's, like I said, my own lions had to eat my own tigers to get me where I am. And I have been told by my doctor that he does think it, part of it was my attitude, that I was, able to rise above the situation. But I'm also very blessed that I've had the most amazing medical treatment. And, everybody thinks that miracles are something that happens instantaneously, and maybe it's not. Maybe the miracle was that I happened to call on the day that I called and I got the gastroenterologist that I got, and then that he connected me with the hematologist I got. And to have a doctor like him that calls me out of the blue, hey, I just read something, what do you think about this? Or I can email him, hey, I just found this study, what do you think about it? And to correspond and to know that there's a doctor that that you're on the forefront of his mind and that he wants to make the situation better. I mean, that can't hurt your attitude either.
It's hard because nowadays people look at doctors and medicine as a money thing. So it's hard to find somebody that actually truly cares, because if he sees 10 people a day, it's really special for a doctor to for each patient to actually feel for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that needs to be changed in this world, because I've had my own, not myself, but just family going through the same thing, kind of. And when you go back, I had doctors arguing because we sent them to get a second opinion, because they weren't going to make the money off of us. They literally said, why are you doing that? So to have somebody special like that, I think it's definitely something that's different and help you.
Like I said, that in itself for me was a miracle. He is very intelligent. He's very inquisitive, and he's very humble. And to realize that with a doctor, to say, I don't know where you are, but we're going to figure it out. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot that comes from that gives me made me relax a little to know that, you know, I'm not being treated by some guy with a God complex that thinks he knows all.
Yeah.
And if he'd listened to what the guys at UK said, I wouldn't be here doing this podcast today. So
That's crazy. Do you think that you said you had a lot of support from, I mean, previous players, your wife, your kids.
Yep.
Has that also helped you push through and kind of?
Oh, definitely. You know, I have four adult kids, 2 still in college, 2 just out of college. Jack, Emma, Drew, and Mary Claire, you know them all well from our years here. But, you know, I think that's one of the great things that happens is that families figure out what's really important. And we spend a lot of very good time together that helps buoy your spirits. The other thing that's been really amazing to me is all the players that I've maintained a relationship with over the years that have reached out to me and been there for me, whether it's through social media, whether it's through visits to my house. I mean, like over spring break, all the guys that are away playing college show up on your front doorstep is just like amazing. You know, you're wanting to, you know, lay on the couch and watch Price is Right and cover up and, you know, make a fire and lay there with the dog. And you got guys showing up and just, you know, like, hey, coach, Champions League's on today. We come over to watch the game with you. And, you know, that kind of stuff might go farther than the medicine.
I agree. Because we had, I was the first one to hear about it out of me, Nerman, Roll. Yeah. And once I told, because that was the first thing. First I contacted you, and then I contacted them. I was like, do you know, like, you know what this is? And they all texted me. They said, like, if he's in town, let's set something up. Let's have a reunion. Yeah. And we actually talked with like Donald and Julio and try to get a little Sky reunion in.
Yeah,
so
we're gonna do that still.
I hope it's soon too.
But it's I don't know. It's like I said, it's kind of what I even had in my mind even before I had this latest diagnosis is that the bond that we all have created as teammates, as a coach, I think that's what's the telling thing. And I think what I tried to teach as a coach, like I said, it's not how to kick a ball better or, you know, something tactically, but, you know, I think it's about learning to achieve and learning to better yourself and learning to be a good teammate. That I hope's what everybody's walked away with, and it's kind of what everybody's brought back to me. And I had one of my players that played for me at Trinity in Louisville. His father called me, and they don't even live in Louisville anymore. And I've been very public about my diagnosis. And, you know, a lot of people want to go into themselves and be private, and that's fine. That's how you deal with it. But, you know, you always have those whispers around from everybody. It's just like, oh, my God, did you hear about Mike? He's got this or that and all this. And it's so like I want to be very public about it. And it's not that I want anybody's sympathy, but I want everybody to know what's going on. And for me to be able to share that has really opened the door to a lot of people who've helped me help my family through it all. And it's been one of the great saving graces of this, besides the great medical care, I think, is all the people that have surrounded us with love and support and encouragement. And I think it's a crazy combination of medicine and attitude and love that have gotten me where I am today.
Did you have any superstition or whatever it may be going through it? Because I know you had a lot when you were a coach.
I've always been a superstitious player. I was a superstitious coach, a superstitious fan. And if my teams played and I had on a certain pair of socks, a shirt, or underwear, I had them on, and I wore them through. And when I was coaching your Sky team, it was a very cold day, I remember, and I was trying to get on as many layers as possible. And I found this old, it was like from 2004 Sky Invitational Tournament T-shirt that I'd put on just to have an extra layer. And we won that day, and it was against Javanon, who was at that point probably the top team in the state. And somehow I decided that T-shirt was the lucky T-shirt, and I ended up wearing that, and we made a tremendous run that year.
We even made T-shirts that said "Respect the T-shirt."
Yeah, we had shirts about the shirt.
Yeah,
and I'm still that way to this day. And my son Drew plays at Bellarmine, and I try to go to every game, whether it's home or away. And back in this spring season, I was a little too sick to go to the game one day, and they were playing Wright State, which was a D1 team. And I had this shirt on that day, and they won. They had gone through that whole spring season playing all D1 opponents and had no losses. Dating back to the previous season, they lost in the conference championship on PKs. The NCAA doesn't count a PK victory as a victory. It goes down officially as a tie. So the Bellarmine team that is still alive today, playing in the Sweet 16 for the NCAA tournament this year, goes back they've got a 30-game unbeaten streak going right now.
That's awesome.
And I really think it's due to the shirt.
Yeah, they better retire it. Retire that shirt with the jerseys.
I'll tell you what. I wanted this podcast to go so well. That's why I wore that shirt tonight. so it's a little superstition.
Good luck for everything.
Should have wore the Sky one under.
Yeah, I should have. I can't believe I forgot to bring it. I still have the shirt.
So moving on with coaching, you have this famous quote. I think you even have a Facebook page kind of dedicated to it.
Yeah. So when I was coaching at Trinity High School, we'd always been known one of the top programs in the state. Maybe at times maybe seen as maybe the underachiever. St. X has won now 10 or 12 state championships. They happen to be in the same region as us, so you feel like you're doing something if you just win Region 7, because usually a state champion may or may not come out of that region. We had a really good team, and this was in the fall of 2013, and we had made it to the regional final. We'd beaten St. X in our rivalry game during the regular season, but we'd never gotten out of the regional finals against them. We'd lost the last few games, and we'd kind of had an unbeaten streak, but the last loss before that was to St. X in the region a year or so before. And I was just, trying to think, how am I going to inspire these guys just to rise to the occasion? We're good enough, but we've got to believe it. It's not, on paper, yes, we're the best team. Technically, tactically, I'll take our players over their players any day of the week. But I was like, we've got to believe it. And, I've always, as a coach, I've always thought that, you've got to have the mental aspect down. It doesn't matter how much talent you have, how much skill you have. If you don't know it and don't use it, it's no good. It's like having a Ferrari, but no money to put in the gas tank. So I was just like, man, St. X, they're the Tigers. What's tougher than a tiger? And I was like, well, tigers are like the top of the food chain in their habitat. So I don't know what's tougher than a tiger. And I was just like, what's another big apex predator? I'm like, lions are really big. I know lions and tigers don't live in the same habitat, but what would happen if a lion and a tiger fought? So I Googled it. And, we've come to more sensible times in our human existence nowadays with deference to animal cruelty or not. But there's some old grainy videos on YouTube that people have posted of lions and tigers fighting. And I watched some of those. And so I kind of conveyed that story to the boys. And I was just like, I don't know what's tougher than a tiger. But I Googled it. And a lion is tougher than a tiger. I've been watching lions eat tigers all day. And we're going to go out on that field, and lions are going to eat tigers. And you know why we're lions and why they're tigers? Tigers are a solitary animal, and they're out for their own good. A lion always hunts for the pride. And Trinity, if anything's about Trinity, we're about a brotherhood, and we're a pride. And we're going to go out, and we're going to be lions, and we're going to eat tigers. And we ended up winning that and went to state. We made a great run that year. We ended up losing in penalties in the final to Dunbar that year. And ironically, it was played at Dunbar. So they got a home game for the state final, which that rule's now since changed. And, but it's kind of funny how that little speech became such a mantra and a rallying cry. And, I could be on campus and everybody like, Coach Goetz, Lions eat tigers, or what, and it just became the rallying point of that team. And so for the 3 or 4 years that I was around there, and even after, it became kind of a rallying point. And so, as I was when I first got diagnosed with the MS, I was thinking about, why is it that all my players still have a relationship with me? Why is it that they care enough to reach out to me in my time of need? And it just kind of dawned on me. It's lions eat tigers. And it's not that speech. It's not what that means, but it means that relationship that we've all had. And so I thought at that point it was going to be a book, and it was going to be a book about some guy, some yokel in Kentucky who coaches soccer and has good relationships with former players, and hopefully taught them a few life lessons along the way. But little did I know, life had me some more lessons to teach.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, that was I think some of my best memories, and some of the, I remember sleeping in Brescia. we
Yes.
had you were in the morning when we got up, and you kind of, I don't know where you pull these speeches out of, but
I write them all.
I guess you stay up all night just writing them. But
I don't stay up all night. It just comes to me. It just, that's the way I choose to look at the world.
It gets you motivated because, if you are playing Javenon or somebody, you are the underdog, and you are and after that, you kind of have this fire built up, and you just go out there and you make it happen.
Well, I think one of the things, I think you might even remember me always telling you this: soccer is a thinking man's sport. It's not a coaching sport. It's not like a basketball where you can call a timeout and run a play.
Yeah.
It's not like football where you've got all these plays memorized. It happens in an instant. And the best players are the best thinkers. It doesn't matter how fast you are. It doesn't matter what kind of touch you have. If you don't have the cognitive ability to read the situation and make something happen, you're not going to be a very good player.
I agree.
And I read a great book about that a few years ago. It's called "The Stupid Footballer is Dead," and it's written by a former Premier League player, a guy named Paul McVeigh, who's now one of my closest personal friends. After I read that book, and it was all about the mental aspect of the game, and that he had a 16-year career playing for Tottenham, Norwich, and a couple other sides. But he always attributed his success to his mental performance. And, all these top Premier League teams, they have mental performance coaches, and it's for a reason. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't use the 6 inches between both of your ears to harness that ability, then you're of no good to anyone. And so after I read that book, it was just so inspiring to me. It was so inspiring to me even as on a personal level, not anything to do with football or soccer. I sent him an email. I found him on LinkedIn, and I just told him what that book meant to me, and we struck up a relationship. And he did some mental performance sessions with my son Drew. He did some mental performance sessions with my team at Trinity, and he now is the only Premier League player to have earned a master's degree in sports psychology. He spent his time now doing a lot of keynote speaking. He comes to the States and does a lot of mental performance training sessions with colleges, clubs, and I've helped him, link up with a lot of the coaches I know around the country. And, it's just like this kismet that I've always thought that, the mental aspect of the game is what makes you great at the game. And I think you can take that mental aspect from the game and apply it to life. And that's what I've always hoped that I would instill with all my players, is that, the struggles that you have on the field are no different than the struggles you have in life. And if you work hard and you have the right mental preparedness, you're going to move on from this, and you're going to beat this, and you're going to conquer this. And so that's where it's always been. And all of you guys have come back to me in my time of need and given me that same advice back, and that's why I'm here today.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really, really, really moving story. For myself, mentor for me. And wrapping it up, we want to do the Timeless 10, which is basically he's going to ask you 10 questions that we ask every guest.
Okay.
And it's just quick questions. So, yeah, get started on that. And I appreciate you coming today, man.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate it, coming down from Louisville.
Yeah. All right, let's go with the first question. If you had to work but didn't need the money, what would you choose to do?
Well, seeing that I've not really made anything coaching, I guess it's coaching soccer. Because that's not paid the bills over the years, but it's filled my heart.
If you could meet one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
I would like to meet the Dalai Lama. I follow him on social media, and I was born and raised Catholic, and I'd love to meet the Pope too. But I think because I've always been such a fan of mental performance, and I think it seems that Buddhism is something that is always focused on our mental state. I would love to meet him and be able to pick his brain a little bit and probably gain more insight than I could ever dream of having.
Absolutely. Mind over matter, I think.
Yeah.
Matters a lot. If you had all the money in the world, what would be your first purchase?
My first purchase would probably be a charitable contribution. I would give a bunch away, and then and maybe it's because of what I've gone through the last couple of years. I've really learned that I have everything I need.
Yeah.
I used to have a dream car. I always thought someday I'd own a Porsche. I don't care if I have a Porsche. I'm happy to be driving my 2016 Hyundai Santa Fe. I have a great house. I have a great family. I have a great dog, and I really don't know what else I need. So, I mean, I think I would want to take that money and do good with it. Would I want to make myself and my family's lives more comfortable? Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's not one thing that
You want.
You feel like you're missing.
I really don't, and I hate to sound. I think that sounds very cliche.
But I guess situation kind of put things in perspective at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Really changed it. Yeah. If you had one piece of advice for the young generation, what would it be?
I've got this quote that I've come up with, and I think it's kind of my parting thing that I would say to people is never take yourself too seriously, but never fail to see the fullness of your potential.
Hell of a quote.
Is that going to be the quote on the
On the
clock?
Yeah, you're gonna get a clock at the end of it. You can break in.
I've got one other quote that I really love that's kind of been a mantra to me, and I'm going to say it. Then I'm going to ask you guys to see if you can figure out who said this quote. It's not enough to merely be the best of the best. You want to be known as the only ones who do what you do.
Is it somebody of my time?
Slightly. Somebody. He's a very famous musician. I'll say that.
Michael
but
Jackson.
He's no longer living.
Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley,
No.
Tupac.
What genre?
Well, I'll just go. I'll let you off the hook. It was Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead.
Oh, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have guessed that.
But think about the Grateful. There's nobody that's ever done what they did.
I mean,
They
How
were
long-
the original
they were the-
jam band. They were the original psychedelic band.
Yeah.
And that it stands the test of time.
Sweet.
deep quote. So, who inspired you the most growing up?
I wish you'd given me these ahead of time because I'd have some set answers.
It's got to be on the spot.
But on the spot, I would say one of the most inspirational people were my parents. I learned to love myself, and B, I was always taught that no one's better than anybody else.
I agree.
Absolutely, yeah. Who is your favorite artist right now? Musical artist or any kind of artist, really?
Well, I've got a crazy eclectic mix of music. If you looked on my Apple
Music.
you would trip out at it. A 51-year-old man listens to what I listen to, but my favorite band right now, and they haven't had a new album in a few years, but I still just wear out, is a band out of Los Angeles called Chicano Batman.
Chicano Batman.
And these guys, they've become friends of mine. I had them do a charity. I was on the board of a nonprofit, and they happened to be playing in Louisville on my birthday. And I just sent an email to their manager and said, "Hey, you guys are going to be in town. It's my 50th birthday. I'd love for you to do a, would you do a Facebook Live concert as a fundraiser for a charity that I'm on the board with?" And they agreed to do it.
It's awesome.
So it's near and dear to my heart, but I love their music too before I ever got to know them as people.
Got a way of connecting with people. It's kind of impressive. Just kind of making all these connections with people through emails.
It's I believe in building bridges.
Yeah.
It's way easier to build bridges, and our world's a better place building bridges than if we build walls.
I agree.
Absolutely. All right. What's the most common reason you think people give up is?
I think people give up because it's hard for people to see outside of the present. It's easy to get weighed down with your daily woes. It's easy to be stuck in your rut, and to realize that if you can click that switch in your mind, that you can change your circumstance, because perception is reality. And if you decide that you're going to be happy, if you decide that you're going to achieve, that eventually you're going to. And if you have that winning mentality, it might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow, but those challenges and hurdles that you reach are only going to be that, just a hurdle that you're going over, and eventually you're going to get to that place where you're the winner.
All right. And if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To read minds.
We had a debate about that on one of our
I agree.
Thomas talks.
If you can read minds, you can
You can do anything you want.
because
Yeah.
you can manipulate people to do what they want. That's the evil side of it.
Yeah.
Not all of us think like that.
Yeah, but then you would also, some people would get hurt too, because
Maybe.
you know sometimes you got those wild thoughts right there.
Hey, one of the pieces of advice I've always given to anybody that'll listen to me, younger guys like you, use your powers for good instead of evil.
True.
Yeah.
I read a book, the 21 Laws of Power or something.
Yeah.
And that book is like how to use your powers for evil.
Yeah, that book
And
is.
I burned it.
I haven't heard of that, but I don't think I'll be picking up that.
No, I don't. It's literally like.
It's a really old book. It's like written by some like Japanese war general forever ago.
But they say it's really
Yeah.
effective if you actually use it. But
It's like a
No,
good. It's a good
it's
go-getter
everything
mentality
against
book,
ethics.
but it goes against ethics. It kind of just it's rough.
It's a pass for me.
Last question. What's the one thing you can't live without? A material item, not like a person, but something. If you're going on vacation, if you're going to be somewhere, what's one thing you have to have with you?
other than your like toothbrush and
Yeah.
just one. Some
One
people
thing.
say iPad. Some people.
You know, one of the things materially that I look forward to the most is a cup of coffee first thing in the morning.
I agree. I'm the same way.
I love getting up, being the only person awake in the house, sitting there in total darkness, and just kind of meditating and thinking and just enjoying that just perfect aroma of a fresh cup of coffee. And it's probably not the coffee, it's probably that time of day and what
Yeah.
I'm doing mentally, but that whole just, I can think of the aroma of a cup of coffee right now and it puts me in that place. And I think that goes back to being true to yourself, and if you don't give yourself the time to right your ship, then to me it's your day's not going to go very well if you can't get yourself in line first.
Yeah, I can see that. Kind of just a good time to plan your day out, see what you have ahead of you, just kind of clear your mind a little bit before your day started as well.
When
Yeah.
you learn how to enjoy yourself, your own company,
Yep.
that's when you're the
Yep.
Happiest.
happiest.
Yeah. All right, and you want to go back to that one question? The disinvent one mention
What's one thing you would disinvent?
This
Yeah.
event,
right there.
Disinvent.
coffee.
Oh, disinvent.
Disinvent.
Okay.
Yeah.
As much as I always have mine,
Phones.
I hate where we've come as a society with our phones, and we spend a lot of time together separately. And I'm as guilty as anyone else, so I'm not sitting here on a high horse saying, I take this time without my phone. I'm guilty, and like I said, I came over here even though I'm not going to use my phone. It's sitting next to me during this
Yeah.
podcast. But I think as much as we think that these devices have connected us, it's really made us unconnected.
I agree. He's doing a positive and a negative
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
same time.
I mean,
but
I mean, there's so many good things you can do with it, but I look at where we are. You look at what social media has done. You look at. I feel like we've had an attack on learning, even, and that we've got all the information in the world at our fingertips. Yet we find so many people that are so misinformed about so many things, and just because we have that at our fingertips doesn't make us more intelligent.
Yeah. Well, it also gives you access to the wrong information as well.
It can.
Yeah.
It can do that too.
yeah. So wrapping it up, we're gonna give you a clock and just break it on camera. You don't have to.
Yeah.
There's some safety glass. You got glasses.
I got glasses.
And you're gonna write a quote on it after we clean it up and stuff.
Yeah.
And what quote are you gonna put in it? I'd say a little shorter one since you're gonna have to write a lot, but it's up to you.
I'm going to put that quote because that's one. I've always been a collector of quotes, but that's one that I coined myself, and is don't take yourself too seriously, but never fail to see the fullness of your potential.
Awesome.
All right.
Sweet.
Let's get.
I'll write real
get on
small.
the hammer. All right, you might have like.
Yeah, no, you're just gonna
No, you can put
lay
it-
it on the table.
Yeah.
Right there, yeah. And just
Yeah.
just break it, just so.
Okay.
Damn. All right, we good.
All right.
You gonna bring this up or not?
I thought it was going to be plastic. I didn't realize it was glass.